One place that I feel like the sex workers' rights movement has been trying to go for a while would be decriminalization of sex work. I think that some sex workers can kind of make it look like a panacea. Oh, if we get decriminalization, suddenly all the problems will go away. There's a lot of anti-racism work that we still need to do, a lot of work to address poverty. What's a key vulnerability to being trafficked? There's so many social issues that we also need to be working on, and not just like the legal process of decriminalization of prostitution. But that, I think, is a really important first step for us.
Hello, and welcome to Power Beyond Pride, a queer change-making podcast bringing you voices and ideas from across our fierce and fabulous spectrum to transform our world. I'm Daniel W.K. Lee, poet, author, and artisanal fiber connoisseur.
And I am your co-host for the evening, the one and only fabulous Mattie, Bynum. Daniel, you are into artisanal fiber connoisseur. So I guess I would say that I am a pepper and cheese connoisseur, even though I'm lactose intolerant. So there you go. But I am an upcoming author and TV personality.
Sometimes you have to suffer for what you like.
I'm saying, look here, I know I love ice cream, but I know dairy don't like me, so I just stay at home. Stay by myself. That's why we're single. I love it. So we're your co-hosts tonight on our queer cash journey as we have a beautiful time talking with the one and only Laura LeMoon. She is a writer and author. She's a public health consultant, a sex worker, a sex trafficking survivor. And honestly, I think she's just a dynamic, wonderful person.
Laura co-founded Safe Night Access Project in Seattle, a nonprofit that was aimed for providing outreach to street-based sex workers, and was a former peer policy advisor to the UN's Office on Drugs and Crime, U.S. Department of Justice, the CDC, the City of Seattle, and the World Health Organization. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. And I also love cheese.
It's a wonderful thing. I'm telling you, it's like crack for me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just telling you, it'll put me in a coma, but it's so worth it. Oh my God. What's your favorite cheese?
I like Havarti. Like, I don't think anybody likes that cheese, but I love it, especially with the dill in it. I don't know.
Very mild. It's tasty. I'm plant-based. I haven't eaten cheese in a long time. I do like cheese, but I want to start off by actually, instead of kind of going with diving into your activism, Laura, but beginning with your writing. You've published some really salient pieces about the personal dimensions of nonprofit work. And specifically, I was looking at a piece earlier today that you wrote for Medium in 2020, Social Justice and Ego, What is Selfless Activism? Could you talk about your experiences of what led you to write that piece and what might be some signs that someone should be aware of to kind of think of maybe it's time that I need to maybe disentangle a little bit of my sense of identity from the kind of work that I'm doing as well?
Yeah. So first of all, that's a great question. I just want to say that I have found myself in that trap. So this is not by any means casting stones at other people. I think that for me, I've experienced a lot of being fired because I was doxxed by coworkers and things like that for my writing, which began in 2017. So pretty much ever since 2017, I've been almost unemployable, which is as far as like a 9-to-5 job where you take home a paycheck and stuff. And I think when it comes to sex work and sex trafficking, especially sex trafficking, there's so many people who don't have those experiences, I'll say, people who consider themselves allies, but then think that they know best, I guess, which would be a really egotistical thing for them to think. I mean, I'll just say it outrightly. Like, I've had a number of supervisors and everything tell me that there's no such thing as sex work. And for a 2017 piece that I wrote for Wear Your Voice magazine, which I think is defunct now, but it was really great. I basically called out Ashton Kutcher's 2017 Senate speech about trafficking, where he was just kind of like crying and talking about child abuse videos or trafficking videos that he had seen, which is worrisome why that would happen. And I was in a job as a human trafficking advocate for youth. I worked only with youth 12 to 24, I think it was, most of them were actively being trafficked or had just gotten out of a trafficking situation. And I was fired from that job for that Where Your Voice article because in it, I said that I support sex work, adult consensual sex work, which is adult and consensual is sort of inherent in the word sex work, but a lot of people aren't aware. And they told me that I supported child sex trafficking because I supported sex work. And these are people who are not sex workers. They're not sex trafficking survivors. They don't really, their opinions matter, but like when it comes to actual people with lived experience, they don't. So I think ego is a big problem in social justice work for a number of reasons. Also, I think as queer people and sex workers and trafficking survivors, our options can be very limited in terms of like mainstream jobs for a variety of reasons. For me, it's because Laura LeMoon is my legal birth name. And that's the name I deliberately chose to write under. So I cannot hide from the sex work and sex trafficking aspect. A lot of people, myself included, there have been many times I don't have the capacity to do a mainstream job and work 9 to 5 and only take a half-hour break and blah, 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 because my mental health doesn't allow me that luxury, or various physical disabilities don't allow me that luxury. And I think there's a lot of overlooking sex work as legitimate work. And I think for sex workers in particular, activism can be kind of like a natural thing to gravitate towards, just like writing, because they're more accessible. But I think simultaneously, and this happens with a lot of marginalized communities, the sex work community is very broad and encompasses a ton of identities. We tend to feel like very in competition with each other. And there tends to be like this real lack of a sense of community and cohesion and moving in any kind of like a singular direction. And I think part of that is, and I say this for myself too, as somebody who's had limited options, social justice can feel like, well, this is my chance. This is my chance to get the things that so many other people get so easily, and I've been boxed out of. And so we feel very competitive with each other, but there can also be like an aspect of ego, I think. But it's more understandable to me than allies of sex trafficking survivors or something. These are kind of different issues. So yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I just laid out like a whole bunch of bleh.
It's okay. No, it all made sense.
That's what I'm aiming for.
To follow up to that, though, what would you like to share about your experience and what have you learned in your experiences, not just with your writing, but also with your being sex trafficked, and how does that help you as an advocate?
Yeah, I think for me, I've almost like self-sabotaged myself in a way by being Laura LeMoon in every aspect of life, which I guess I like to make things challenging for myself and have challenges in life. Okay, well,
Why
you got
not?
it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me, the way I started really doing my like sex workers' rights activism in 2009 at a place called St. James Infirmary in San Francisco, which unfortunately no longer exists, I think due to funding. But it was really a one of its kind medical clinic just for sex workers, partners, and their children. So it was really revolutionary. And I started, I guess, just wanting to be closer to myself and investigate sort of my own dark experiences. I started out in the sex industry as a sex trafficking survivor and then went to being like an escort and stuff. So for me, it was really a path of self-discovery, like this writing. And I really look at the writing like a form of activism. It's just different than organizing a nonprofit or doing street outreach or something. But I don't think it's any less important.
I just kind of want to then ask about how'd you get started, or why'd you want to start Safe Night Access Project?
Yeah. So it was myself and 3 other sex workers here in Seattle. And I can't even remember like exactly how we got together, but it's sort of that thing of we're all sex worker activists, even across the US. Like we all kind of know of each other or know of each other or something. So just from being a small micro community in Seattle. So I really, I guess, saw that there was nothing available to sex workers in Seattle directly. So there was like People's Harm Reduction Alliance and a couple other organizations that were kind of like in an indirect way supportive of sex workers, but they themselves, the organization wasn't meant for sex workers. So I kind of saw, and I think this is true for my other co-founders as well, like we all just saw that there was this big need and there was nowhere for us to go to get money. There was nowhere for us to go, like that's specifically for us, that specifically prioritizes us. There's nowhere to go to get housing help or case management or HIV testing that specifically prioritizes sex workers first and foremost. And we really saw, so Safe Night Access Project wasn't just an organization for sex workers broadly. We were specifically focused on outdoor sex workers, so sex workers on the track here in Seattle, as well as BIPOC sex workers, LGBTQ sex workers, and sex workers living with HIV, just because we felt that like those things, especially the sex workers' rights activism, by virtue of it being kind of a privilege to take time to do free work, like is very white and middle or upper class, a lot of people with master's degrees, stuff like that. So it's not necessarily representative of the communities that are in need. So yeah, I think it was just really us like getting together and being like, man, I need money for housing. Like, why don't we have a place that's just for us? Because yeah, we can go to other social service agencies, of course, but they're not going to prioritize our needs as much as a place that does, obviously.
For sure. Well, we're going to take a short break here, and we're going to circle back and talk a little bit more about the work that Laura did in Seattle. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Power Beyond Fraud, a queer change-making podcast. I am your co-host, Mattie, here with my beautiful co-host, Mr. Daniel himself. And we are talking to the wonderful, beautiful Laura LeMoon. And before we went to break, Daniel, you was asking her some questions. I definitely want to jump back into that conversation.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Laura your opinion on what should be, if you were going to be prescriptive, should be the trajectory. What should the movement for sex workers' rights be looking at or moving towards? Are there things that the movement might have been overlooking for a period of time, or what are the opportunities? And we're in a very particular political, social, economic, everything upheaval. So yeah, I would love to hear, I'm sure our audience would love to hear kind of your perspective on the future trajectory of sex workers' rights.
Yeah, great question. And something really deep and complex. So I'm sure I'll have a very succinct answer. Okay, so I jotted down some notes as you were talking because a couple different things occurred to me. So one place that I feel like the sex workers' rights movement has been trying to go for a while and has made headway for sure, but for a lot of us is still pretty important that we get to. So that would be decriminalization of sex work. So technically decriminalization of prostitution, but also the destigmatization and the getting rid of discrimination, financial discrimination of adult film performers and OnlyFans people
For sure.
and things like that. So I think that's one direction that's still important to a lot of sex workers. It's important to me. I think that some sex workers can kind of make it look like a panacea. Oh, if we get decriminalization, suddenly all the problems will go away. And that's kind of a narrow lens. So there's a lot of anti-racism work that we still need to do to break down systems, a lot of work to address poverty, which is one of the key reasons that trafficking occurs. It's a key vulnerability to being trafficked. So there's so many social issues that we also need to be working on, and not just like the legal process of decriminalization of prostitution. But that I think is a really important first step for us. The other thing I just want to note, and I kind of touched on this earlier, is the competition. So the competitiveness between sex workers, even sex workers' rights activists. A lot of people have endured trauma. A lot of people, and in trauma, I include like poverty, I include historical trauma, things like that. So a lot of people feel, and I myself have really experienced feeling like, what is the term? Like a poverty mindset, quote unquote. I don't really like that term, but
Like scarcity.
scarcity. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for, a scarcity mindset. So I need to screw over someone else in order to get this thing, because if I don't, I'm afraid I'm not going to eat this month, or I'm afraid that I'll never get recognized and have a stable job, or which are all totally valid things and things that I've experienced. Also, I've felt that way for sure before. And I think it's kind of a trap that we get caught in. And I don't know the answer for it. I think that's one of the biggest things working against us. And it's a very complex issue because so many people have so many things going on in their lives that makes them unable to really participate in activism or do activism. So it's really hard to get any kind of uniformity or like group moving together as a group or anything, because we are so diverse as people. There's something called the hierarchy, which is full service sex workers, which is a term that usually means prostitution. So escorts, full service sex workers are at the bottom. They're the lowest of the low. The lowest of the low in the hierarchy is outdoor full service sex workers. And then you have dancers or something, which is a legal form of sex work. And it's very different doing legal sex work versus illegal in terms of the risks and vulnerabilities and stigma and everything like that. So a white middle class dancer is going to have very different experiences than a Black trans person on the track living with HIV or whatever the situation is. There's just such monumental differences between all of us. And a lot of us are just not in a place in our lives where we have any kind of like economic stability that allows for us to be able to participate in activism, unfortunately. And a lot of people would like to, but you know, if you're too busy, and I've been in this place, like when I'm too busy trying to not get evicted or trying to find a hotel for the night because I'm homeless or whatever it is, like I don't have time to help you organize some stupid fucking protest or this or that. Am I getting paid for it? No. Okay, well, fuck you. I'm interested. So, and I think those are systemic barriers that we face to getting more towards decriminalization or getting towards what we feel like would make a better, safer world for us.
Right. Addressing fundamental needs. Mhm.
Yep.
So I want to take a little time real quick, and I want to run down your background. So you have served as a public policy and legislation and public health consultant to the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, the CDC, City of Seattle, White House Domestic Policy Council, Seattle and King County Public Health, U.S. Department of Justice, United Nations Human Rights Committee, and United Nations Human Rights Council. I'm just going to stop right there real quick. When do you sleep? When do you get downtime? What do you do to stay so young and beautiful?
You know
Girl.
what? I try to have a life and time. I don't, and I feel like maybe almost kind of like calling myself out. It's almost a coping mechanism to deal with like loneliness and feelings of unfulfillment and just the existential void. Like I'm just running pretty much with all this work. And I guess I'm being like productive or whatever for the rest of the world. But, you know, I probably should just carve out a little bit of time to not do stuff. So I think
I'm going to need you to carve out some me time. You do. It's very vital. Very, very vital.
I think I'm a pretty avoidant person of like my own feelings. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'm in bed. No one's around. I'm feeling lonely. Let me just write this thing, or what am I doing? That's going to fulfill me.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's also single people syndrome, because I'm the same way too. If I'm up at a certain hour and everybody else is asleep and I can't talk to people, that's when I start rearranging my house, redecorating, writing stuff, booking trips, planning different things that I can do. Or my favorite, getting up, having a whole fashion show while I'm smoking a blunt. I do that at 3 o'clock in the morning as well. And we'll have a whole series in my house. But you got to, I will say, I am an advocate about carving out time for yourself, especially now, the busier I get with life. Like I have always made it a point to say, okay, at some point in time, I got to have Mattie time. But I think one of my biggest questions I have for you is, I know what it feels like to be on stage in front of 800 people and performers, but how did it feel to testify before the United Nations?
you know, it was, my voice was shaking noticeably. And as I read it, so you only have a minute and a half, I think, for this particular time to read your thing, which is, fuck, how do I communicate all the shit I want to communicate
In 90 seconds.
Yeah,
What in the world?
I told you all I'm not the same. So in those situations, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not like speaker Laura. I'm Laura, the person with lived experience. And I'm not here saying I'm an expert on anything except for my own life and my own experiences. And I'm not trying to be, and it's hard because you're in a room with all of these fancy United Nations, government, nonprofit leaders type people. And it's intimidating to be like, oh yeah, I'm a fucking whore.
Right.
But that is what I believe is most powerful, is personal narrative and speaking from the heart. So I told a story about a rape I experienced from what was he? Oh, he was a trick. I can't remember if it was him or my sugar daddy, and I got raped and robbed, and I couldn't go, obviously I couldn't go to the police, but I wanted to go to the hospital, and I didn't want to get like a rape kit, but I wanted to get a PEP, and I wanted to get the morning after pill, and I had no job at the time, and I had just come out of homelessness, and I was too afraid to go to the hospital because I knew I would have to explain what happened. And I knew they would be like, wait, you're a sex worker? How does a sex worker get raped? And I would have to kind of educate and explain. And I just got fucking raped. I'm not here to educate you. Like, you just need to understand. You just need to. Yeah. And so testifying was really hard. I also testified at the White House before the Biden administration cabinet, which went not well in my estimation because the DOJ walked out during the middle of my testimony.
Wow.
Yeah. And the DOJ is the biggest agency involved in that has their finger in sex work and trafficking. So I was trying to talk mostly to the fucking DOJ, and she just didn't care and just walked out and left. She was the head of the DOJ. But I started crying on the podium. I was the only person who talked about personal experience. Everyone else talked about statistics and, data and things like that, which are important. But I didn't feel like that was the right thing for me to do. So I told that same story at the White House. And it was kind of after I left the podium, it was, pardon the graphicness, but like somebody just walked into the middle of the room and took a shit on the floor and walked away. Like, we're all just like kind of stunned and didn't know what to think. And here's this crying person. She's a criminal and she's here under her legal name. And I made sure to identify myself as a criminal while I looked to their eyes. And talk about needing some time to yourself after that shit. I was kind of wrecked for months and I went into a big depression. Same with the UN speech at the UN Human Rights Committee. That was just so draining because it's almost, you feel like you're putting your trauma on display, like it's trauma porn. But for me, I feel like telling stories is the most powerful way to change minds. I don't feel like data and statistics is the most powerful way to change minds.
Well, I definitely agree with you because I think a lot of times in our world and in our society that we live in, especially in this political climate, people disassociate themselves with reality. So it's easier to look at statistics. It's easier to look at pie charts. It's easier to hear what could happen versus hearing from someone what did happen to me.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you on that one. I do have to pause you just a quick second because we do have to go to break real quick. But I definitely want our listeners to stay tuned because we're going to come back and talk and continue this conversation. I'm so grateful that we have Laura LeMoon here with us to speak with us about it this evening because it's better to hear it from a firsthand experience. So we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Power Beyond Pride, a queer change-making podcast. I'm your co-host, Daniel, here with my co-host, Mattie. And we're talking with artist, essayist, activist, Laura LeMoon. And I want to pull on that little thread, the artist thread. And I'm curious, is art one of your refuges from kind of the insanity of the world that you did a photo series on the victims of the Green River killer? How did that come about? And what other some projects that you've been working on to kind of take you away, Calgon, take you away from all of this?
Thank you for asking that question because I do feel like even though the subject matter is definitely has no levity whatsoever to it, there is something about art in general that has kind of a levity and a freedom. And I think it's another way to discover myself in a way that I kind of stalled out on with social justice work. I still obviously do social justice work, but I think it takes so much and it certainly gives back, but not in equal quantities. I think it takes more than you get as the activist. And sometimes that's just not okay with me. Like what happened after I went to DC last September, it was just like, you know what? Fuck this. I need time for myself and to be a human being. So the photo series has been a project that I worked on for a couple of years. And the Green River killer, his name is Gary Ridgway, and he's currently incarcerated for a life sentence in maximum security at a Washington State Penitentiary, which is in Walla Walla, famous for onions and wine. In case you want to go. don't have.
I like both. I do both. Yeah.
So Gary Ridgway, between 1980 and 1999, he murdered at least 49 girls and women, the bulk of whom were in the sex trade. And he got them off of International Boulevard and Pacific Highway, which are two very historic tracks in the Seattle area. And when he was arrested, so he was arrested, I think it was 2000 or 2001. And the detective of the King County Sheriff's Department asked him, "Why did you target prostitutes?" quote unquote, his wording. And he said, "Because I knew nobody would ever care." So this was really, especially after the violence I've experienced in sex work. And by that, I don't mean, I'm not referring to clients. I'm not referring to individual people, even. I'm referring to systemic violence. I'm referring to poverty. I'm referring to discrimination and all the people who wouldn't give me a chance at a mainstream job. It was like me feeling like I needed a place other than writing, other than direct activism, to be heard. And that's kind of through all of these women's stories. And I should say that he was convicted of 49 women. However, he has said it's probably around 100. So currently he was moved from Walla, which is in Eastern Washington, to King County Jail, which is Seattle, in order to help the detectives look for more bodies. And he was given a life sentence as opposed to the death penalty because many of the families wanted the bodies, understandably, of the deceased loved ones. And it was a plea deal that he would tell them where those remains were in exchange for a life sentence as opposed to the death penalty. So it's really amazing because writing has been such a slog, like banging my head on a brick wall to get it to move a millimeter as a sex worker. And I think it's because writing is very ivory tower, intellectual. Oh, a prostitute is stupid and they're probably addicted to drugs. And they don't think a sex worker could also be intellectual or articulate or any of those things. And certainly the art community is very ivory tower as well and very gatekeepy as well. But I found it to be less so than writing. So it's been sort of an instant positive reception from the art community about this photo series, which has been really kind of shifting my like saltiness about feeling like we're so overlooked, the artistic community. And the show with it wasn't all 49 because that would be insane. But some of the photos from the series have been exhibited in London, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Tokyo. I went to Tokyo recently. I didn't go to all these places, but my art did. And then it's going to be exhibited in Athens, Greece in May, and it's going to be exhibited in Melbourne, Australia in December. And I did just win a international Leonardo da Vinci prize from this foundation.
Yay,
and
that's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This foundation in Italy, in Palermo, and these very well-known art critics and curators. So it wasn't anything I applied for. They just found me and found my series and are giving it a platform. And I'm just I'm still kind of stunned. You care? And I know that's being really negative.
That's amazing.
And everything, but there's just is a part of me that's been almost kind of don't know what to do when society is, oh, we actually kind of embrace you now in this certain sector. So I'm going to Milan. So I guess I don't even know anything about Leonardo da Vinci. I feel like an idiot, but Leonardo da Vinci, I guess, did a lot of his paintings in Milan. So they're having a ceremony, or not ceremony, it's the wrong word, a reception for the award in Milan at the National Museum of Science and Technology in Milan.
Okay.
And it's a couple, a number of people get the award every year. So it's by no means just me going there.
Laura, don't downplay yourself, Laura. We're not doing that. That is amazing, and congratulations.
Thank you. I bring it up because I want other sex workers and sex trafficking survivors to know that there is change. Like I said, I started working in 2009 in sex workers' rights activism. And even just since then, there is a huge, people know the word sex work now. A lot of people, not everyone.
Yeah.
Just the fact that some people know the word sex work is, I couldn't have imagined it in 2009. That's crazy. I mean, that's amazing. So we have come a long way and we will continue to. And I just want other sex workers and trafficking survivors to know that there are going to be people who will listen.
Most definitely, most definitely. Well, Laura, I want to say, first off, thank you for always sharing your story. That's beautiful. And you have shared a lot with us this evening. So now we're going to shift gears just a little bit and we're going to go into our rapid question section of the night. Now, I will go ahead and tell you now, I love that you're very open because a lot of these questions will be straight off the cuff. So I cannot prepare you for them. But Daniel has the first one. And the first thing that pops in your mind is your answers to go with, okay?
Okay.
Yes. So the first one, what's your favorite space to write?
My favorite space to write. The graphs. In the graphs. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Love it. So, okay, real quick, what is your zodiac sign?
Sagittarius. With a Scorpio
I should have
rising.
known. I should have used a
Party
fire sign. I'm a
throwers.
Leo.
Yeah.
Go to
honey,
parties.
I'm a fire.
Which activist do you consider as your competition?
No one. And
Love
I
that.
say that just because like I consider myself my own competition.
100%.
Mhm. What is the most challenging part of your creative process?
Self-doubt.
Oh,
Yeah, self-doubt and shame that I don't have the right to get accolades or have people like what I read or have people say nice things, that I should be ashamed of myself.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I know I'm not supposed to think what I have to think. I'd say you're worth more than you think. So, and I specifically say that in relation to the men I've let into my life. So, yeah.
okay. Well, what's one song that you sing when no one is around?
What's that song? What's new, Pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's a good one. I like that.
And I like to sing Wayne Newton sometimes because it gets me like in a happy
Not
mood.
unusual. Okay, Carlton.
That's hilarious. So this is not a quick fire question, but I will ask you, what's next for you?
Art. I am getting my master's degree in creative writing now. So writing will kind of always be a part of me. But I feel, talking again about bitterness and rejection and all of that, I sound like a horrible person, but
You sound like an artist. That's
I know.
Exactly.
So much rejection. But I feel like art is kind of the new writing for me. Not that writing isn't still writing and still and always will be important to me. But I found another outlet for when my relationship to writing seems conflicted and complicated. And I feel like I can't get anything on the page and I just fucking hate writing and blah, blah, blah. I can go to my visual arts and take my camera out somewhere really beautiful and just shoot a bunch of shit. And if it looks good, cool. So, I mean, it feels like less pressure to me.
Yeah. Before we close up, I'm going to give you a little, if you want, a little recommendation in terms of something to read. It's writing, but maybe will help you one way or the other. It's a book of poetry called Amiss, Amiss, by this poet named Gina Ferreira. She's based here in New Orleans. And this book, which came out 2 years ago, she writes these lyrical poems, elegies for women who are killed or went missing in every state of the union.
Wow.
And they're stunning. They're stunning. It's such an interesting project. And sometimes it's reading that helps you. I mean, I'm a poet as well. So sometimes it's just reading that helps you pull from whatever you're in your own writing craft. So I hope it's like available. I think the press is Dos Madres Press. So fingers crossed. But yeah, I think
I'm
you might like it.
Too.
I think you might like it.
I will look out for that.
Well, that's all the time that we have for this episode of Power Beyond Pride. Thank you so much for joining us today, Laura. It's been tremendous. It's been a joy. I'm your co-host, Daniel W.K. Lee. You can follow me at Strong Plum at Instagram, or check out my stuff at danielwklee.com.
And I am your other co-host, Mattie, the hostess with the mostest. And you can follow me at Mattie Simone 737 on Instagram, and Mattie Bynum on Facebook. Now, I want to thank you, Laura, because not only were you a beautiful treat to talk to and to sit and look at, because you're very gorgeous, but I thank you also because your inspiration, your creativity, all those things, we need that in this atmosphere today more than ever. So thank you. And you keep being the amazing person that you are.
Power Beyond Pride is a project of A Great Idea, a queer-owned design and content agency. Learn more about them at A Great Idea. And remember to subscribe and get your friends to subscribe to Power Beyond Pride wherever you get your podcasts, and check out our site at powerbeyondpride.com.
And this episode is produced by Shane Lucas. Smita Sarka is the project developer. Our editor is Jared Redding with support from Ian Wilson.
We are both part of the podcast host team, and we invite you to send your questions and comments to powerbeyondpride.com.
We look forward to clear change making with you at Power Beyond Pride. Thank you once again for joining in and listening. We'll see you next week.